Welcome to the live stream of MA Scenography. I'm here to talk with some alumni of my program. It's an international 2 years program run by the theatre school. And I think it's interesting to hear a little bit about how those alumni have experienced the program and also how it influenced their work. But I want to start asking what their background is. Let me introduce myself, Henny Dörr, and then Aina Rocca and Cecilia Bergman, who graduated in June. Maybe you can say briefly something about your background, Aina?
Yeah, sure.
What did you do before the course?
I studied architecture in Spain, and I worked in different studios before joining the master, and I was looking for something more multidisciplinary, when I joined.
Okay.
My background primarily is in dance and also cinema analysis, and I spent a few years dancing professionally before I decided I wanted to go similarly to Aina into something more multidisciplinary. So I think that's also the reason.
Okay, great. So I asked you to kick off the conversation about your work, to bring each of you an object that relates to that, and also because I feel that if we talk about scenography in our current times, which is about the experience of space and objects in a more or less performative context, I think what we're trying to stress in the program is the playfulness of it. Mm-hmm. So that actually we should see our material as things that we can playfully interact with, and from that interaction create maybe interesting performative work and installations, and in that playfulness invite our audiences and spectators. So it's also a matter of scaling up and scaling down. So maybe Aina, you can start, because you brought this little model. Can everyone see it? Maybe, yeah, there. And maybe you can say something about it.
Yeah, so during the master, what I did was kind of going out of my comfort zone and start not only working with theory, but also doing things with my hands. And this model is a plaster model, and what I did with it is I built like 20 like this one in cardboard, and I tried to represent or create a world that lives inside this object. So the scale of the object doesn't refer anymore to our world, but refers to the world that lives in the object. And that's what about my research also is about, goes, which is about how an object is not anymore an object, but it's a reality in itself. So depending on how you look at it, like now Henny is looking at it from the ground, like looking through the doors. So then she takes a position towards this a specific reality, and there is a connection between who is looking at it and how is looking at it, and I would say that's it a bit.
It's interesting because if you look at it from this perspective, which is a kind of break in a hierarchy between me looking at an object as a human being and being able to manipulate it, yeah. So being kind of oppressive to it, you could say, going in and on an equal level, and then all of a sudden I see other bits of reality that are over a completely different scale. Yeah. Yeah, because your scale is completely different, and I see bits of it, parts of it. So this framing is really interesting, and it's a typical architectural research. But how did your idea of architecture develop further through this research?
I think, like for me, it was supernatural to start working with models. But then, because we in the architectural field we use it as a tool, but now I see the tool not anymore as a tool itself, but more as the main performer. So the model becomes a protagonist, and so the reason of the research is how it can be a performer, and why.
Cecilia, you brought something, and we've placed it here on the black circle. Maybe I can bring it here.
Put it on here.
And we'll put it here. Can you say something about that and what kind of?
Yeah. So, if we're talking about material coming from dance, my material's always been quite simply the body. And so entering into scenography, I think I was very curious about how to not use the body but still keep something that's very simplistic and can say something with just its form. So I'm also a bit like Aina coming from theory and research, and so the notebook and the paper is quite important to me. But then, like you said, in terms of being playful, you can have a notebook where you're diving into your research and your writing, but that can be adapted by ripping out a page and then folding it into something. So I think my research then turned into discussions on how to translate, and that's what I'm attracted to in scenography as well. It's this very polymodal, you can have a story that becomes a piece of paper, that becomes a model, that becomes a dance, that becomes a piece of writing.
Yeah, because initially your research was about having these moments in reality, ephemeral moments, you could say, or transparent moments, or fluid moments, and trying to grasp those and translate them into other materials.
Yeah, I think for me, it's almost like finding theme and variation. I took that from my dance background, where you don't need to create, 16 different things. If you find the core of what you're trying to say, so that ephemeral moment, which I described as atmosphere, you find what that is, then you can make variations on that same mood, and ideally come to a conclusion of, like a performance, a dance piece, but it's not dance necessarily.
Yeah, and now this is a solo dancer.
This is a
but
solo.
In your final project, you had many. It was
yeah,
a
I filled
company.
an entire room.
How many did you make?
6,949.
And why did you make so many?
That was first just folding to play around with the light in the room, because the studio was really beautiful. But then it became an act of doing. So with everything going on right now, Corona, and my family lives in the west coast of the States, and so they have, a lot of political. It was a very politically heavy atmosphere at the moment that I was doing the project, and so I just started folding as a way to represent the act of doing something. And even if it doesn't make sense and people aren't sure what you're doing, the act of folding over and over and over again invites people into a conversation about why.
So that conversation became part of the work?
The conversation became part of the work, and then people started giving me paper. So I never bought paper. I really liked that fact of it, that then it became a mode of sharing. So it became more than just an installation, I think.
And you had a completely different idea of your final project before you started the second year, no?
Oh.
Or was this what you thought you would be making?
No. I mean, I don't generally. I let my intuition tell me what to do, but it's definitely not what I thought I was going to do. I don't know if I have an idea of what it would be, but it wasn't that. So, yeah. Is
that important? Do you think is that important for a creative process, that you kind of delay that moment of? I think. Well, there's something behind the question. I think it's important that you delay that idea of what the final product is going to be, and that is what I think that we're trying to do in the program is what we call then. It's research, but actually that is only trying to say, let's delay your decisions and see what in that playfulness, if you keep it open, could appear
Yeah.
And so it's always the interaction between you and the material that starts to make the work.
Yeah.
Instead of you imposing a concept on the material and then trying to come as close to your ideal idea about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which separates it a little bit from the theatre design history where it's from, because that's very planned.
Yeah.
You're like, I have a story and I'm going to make this and this and this, and you follow the design.
Yeah.
But scenography is way more playful.
I can understand that with the background as a dancer, that became natural for you, because improvising and responding to your environment and to your co-dancers is a large part of the discipline. For an architect, it seems to me really difficult, because you're used to making, let's say, sustainable, stable end products where people can live in or walk through or use, or at least they're functional. What did you do to, did you do anything, did you have a hard time changing your attitude towards your making?
No, I think because I was ready to learn another methodology, even though I wasn't really, I wasn't expecting it, or I wasn't sure it would happen, but it came kind of naturally. So I really appreciated the fact that I found a way to doing without feeling the pressure of finishing it properly. So I always start being super crazy about the preciseness of everything, and at the end I realized that the less precise I am with it, more playful I become, and more conversation appear, and I can start like new concepts, not new concepts like something completely different, but always about the same topic, but then new nuances show up, and then I realized that what I was expecting as a final result is not interesting anymore, it's something else. And that happened because I left myself be more free in the production of something, the making. And this never happened before the master to me.
But you're still working as an architect, no?
Yeah.
And how did the master change the way you look at your work as an architect?
Difficult question, I think.
Yeah.
I think I am still understanding it, because one thing is the architecture environment, and what do you have to produce for that environment, and the other one is the thinking process. And I am trying to take this thinking process and say, hey, this process, so no, not result, but process is also the result. And I am trying to see how can I bring this into my way of looking at my profession. But it takes, I'm not there yet.
No.
Yeah.
No. And Cecilia, what's your dream of doing this year?
This year?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is entering into an internship that's more about curatorship and producing, because I'm now really interested in continuing to work with the environment where you have some people from architecture and dance and film and theater, and so that's really one of the things that I want to continue on professionally, is this multidisciplinary world. And then, meanwhile, also continuing to read back through what I wrote and realize that there are some parts which I really want to continue, but I really wrote a lot of different themes, and now I want to really focus in and see what can I pull and like enrich. So that's what I'm doing in my spare time.
Great, looking forward where you're sharing it. Do you have any question for me?
Yes.
Do we?
I do.
Oh.
Yeah. I thought of one. Yeah, because what I really liked during the master is like there is all this constant movement of different disciplines emerging together. So lots of different professionals came and gave us a lecture or a workshop of a week and so on. And since you are the one who is attracting all these people and all these professionals and touching all these different poles of disciplines, I am wondering, what do you expect, or what do you think is important because you are, let's say, there is the professional, there is the student, and there is you in the middle that connects these two things. So what do you appreciate from the students as a group to take all these new flows into the course?
I'm not sure if I understand your question well, but what I would love to see is that students can see that you can organize or curate an inspiring surrounding, a community around yourself and your work. Mm-hmm. And that they would be brave enough or dare to continue to do that themselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So maybe I want to give a kind of idea that it's not difficult to enter conversations or to create dialogues or to invite people to have interest in your work. You just have to go for it and ask. I've been asking guest teachers, of which I thought, oh, they're really not going to be interested in interacting with me, let alone my students. But they're professionals are very eager to share their experience and also to explore. They're also explorative still. They're also still continuing to think about their work and work in new ways. It's not that it's the professionals that know how to do it and that's static and that's a given career, and as students have to learn something. So most of the professionals that come in are also eager to share questions and to share their topics and their issues. So if you've experienced that in a program, then you know that you can build and rely on a community, and that you have to take that with you and maintain the network and let the network grow. So because it's not, I don't believe that in autonomous genius artist. No, I think that the most beautiful work is done in dialogue and in collaboration with other people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I hope that students will take that with them, mm-hmm. and that they don't leave the course and then are on their own again. No, so it's not only about the work, but it's also about the context in which you work. Mm. So yeah, is that an answer to your question?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yes.
It's not really a question, but to piggyback, I think what we both noticed, and even today, is that part of that network is also the alumni. Mm-hmm. So you see alumni coming in, or they pop into classes sometimes too. And for example, we're already graduated, but we're here talking to the next set of students.
I think that's really important. I think that is what makes it also a research-based program, because you want to share the knowledge that you have gained mm-hmm. through doing this program to peers. Yeah. So without a community to share that, it doesn't mean anything. You know, you can write as much as you want. You know, but it makes sense if you start to share that, mm-hmm. you know, and share insights, knowledges, and discuss about it, and through that also gain new ideas and new knowledge. Mm-hmm. So I think it's wonderful, and I also experienced that when I ask alumni to be here, they will be here. Mm-hmm. That's great, and I'm really grateful that you wanted to join me in this live stream, which is a completely new medium also. Yeah, so it's really, I think it's really exciting that you're sharing your work for anyone who wants to enter the program. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's very difficult if you're, for instance, you live in another country, you think of doing this program. How can you get a feeling of what it is? Mm-hmm. If you cannot visit on an open day or not in between even. And for us that's normal, because you know, it's an international program, so it's not that they can enter the open day anyway. So we have to find new forms of, you know, sharing the work and communicating about it. So I think this is a really nice forum, and I want to thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Who's that?